Let's see. For some reason, it's not. I'm not seeing it. There we go. Okay. We are good. We are running.
Perfect. All right. Well, as always, if you guys are joining us, feel free to leave your thoughts and comments about the pit in the chat, and we'll get to those at some point during the show. But yeah, other than that, I think we're ready to roll.
I think so. Yeah.
Cool. Welcome back to What the Hype, and prepare to clock in for your shift on everyone's favorite new medical drama, The Pit. Hey, Laura, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you? I'm so excited to talk about
Good.
this.
Me too. I was so excited when you told me you started binging The Pit because
Oh, yeah.
like so many people, I got sucked into this show early last year, and we're very lucky in the fact that we are already getting season two. Season two is up and running. It actually premiered just last month, and it's been another whirlwind shift over on The Pit, but we're just going to talk about the show overall here on this episode, give you all a little primer, and kind of get into some of the reasons that we've been just as obsessed with this show as a lot of other people that have been tuning in since it premiered last year. Um, but yeah, should we dive into it? Should we get into the
Yeah.
411?
Yeah. Let's get into it.
All right. So, for any of you who don't know, The Pit is a medical drama. It first premiered in January of 2025. It is set in the fast paced world of Pittsburgh Trauma Medical Center's emergency room. And the series follows attending physician Dr. Robbie as he clocks in for a single 15-hour work shift. Every episode of the season follows Dr. Robbie and the rest of the ER staff on 1 hour of their shift. So a whole season is a full day at work for them.
Yeah.
It's been lauded for its realism and also for its accuracy, portraying the healthcare workers that help us out in real life over at hospitals all over the country. The series returned for its highly anticipated second season last month on January 8th. And that season picks up 10 months later for another shift after the events of season one on the 4th of July. So we're kind of like, we're kind of right at the beginning of the season. But since it is taking place on the 4th of July, I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what big thing
Yeah.
happens because last season ended on a doozy.
Yes, it did. Yeah. And I mean, I guess it's worth mentioning too, we'll be getting into lots of spoilers today for the pit. So if you're not up to speed on the pit, definitely this is your warning to pause and come back and join us later. But yeah, I mean, I think they're very much setting up for each season. It's a day clearly, but that each season is going to probably end on some kind of major event. In season one, that event was a mass shooting, mass casualty event. And that's honestly one of the things I really appreciate about this show, in addition to the realism of how it portrays an emergency room and the kinds of medical emergencies that are coming in there. I think also just the realism for what it portrays insofar as like present day events that would impact an emergency room. I think it does a really good job because you see lots of different things. Like there's obviously the big mass shooting event of last season, but there are also stories where, you see the conflicts that come up as a result of like medical workers being mandatory reporters if they suspect things like abuse or trafficking. Also, kind of like the interpersonal challenges that can exist when you have medical providers who are of two different opinions, or even the conflicts that come up when you have a medical provider who's abusing his access to meds in the emergency room. So there's just a lot. There's a lot that's really compelling about the show, about both the characters and the scenarios that you're presented with in each episode. And what I love about the hour format of each episode is you stick with certain patients throughout the entire season, because obviously anyone who's ever been to an emergency room knows that when you go to one, it's usually not a short visit, and you usually get quite familiar with the staff that's working there because you're there for a while. So there are not only, recurring characters within each season, but there are some recurring characters across seasons too in terms of patients. So I like, it's just such an easy show to get sucked into for that reason. I'm a latecomer when it comes to the Pit. I did not watch this last year when it came out. I just got into it in like the last month and I have binged everything. So
It is
I'm
a
really
really
enjoying it.
easy show to binge. In some
It
ways, I feel
is.
like it plays almost better back to back because
Yes.
I didn't start watching. It had been on my radar and I wanted to start, but I was about like maybe 5 episodes late, and I tore through those 5 episodes so fast. But yeah, it's a really great show to binge. So if you're looking for something and you're not too squeamish, because they do not shy away from showcasing, the blood and gore that can sometimes come along with being
Yeah.
in the ER, then yeah, it's a great show for that as well. I wanted to backtrack a tiny little bit and ask you, what is your history with fictional medical series on television? Because this is a like a popular subgenre. Obviously, the
Yeah.
Pit is not the first, nor will it be the last medical drama we see. And Noah Weil, who plays Dr. Robbie, obviously he got his start on ER, and so it's for him it's like a
Yeah.
big grand return
Yeah. So
to this.
ER is to that point, ER is like
Yeah.
my first touch point for this, just because
Okay.
my parents watched ER when I was a kid. So
Mm-hmm.
as a result of that, I ended up watching a lot of ER. Um, but outside of that, when I got older, the medical show that I was really into was House
Yeah,
with
that was
Hugh
a good
Laurie.
one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of jumped the shark in the
Yeah.
last couple of seasons, but it had some solid seasons in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never followed that one through as much as I wanted to, but I did really love Scrubs, which is coming back
Ah,
for
okay.
a revival. That's more of like a comedy that happens to be set
Yeah.
in a hospital, but I loved that, and like so many other people, huge fan of Grey's Anatomy, until they just killed off one too many people that I adored, and then I stopped
Well,
watching. But that's
that
kind of
show's been
like,
running forever
I
though,
know,
right?
and that's
Like,
also one of those shows where it's like I tell myself I've given it up, but then I think like never say never, because that's like the toxic ex you keep going back to. Like at some point, I know I'm just gonna go back and rewatch like the other seasons, and then probably catch up to another point where I
yeah.
just feel like throwing my remote at the TV.
It's
And
still running, right?
it is, yeah,
Oh, how many seasons has that show been on the air?
almost 30.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
What?
I know, and they're still going strong.
They
It's
can't,
like
they
the
can't even have
new
the same
Days
original
of Our
cast
Lives.
anymore.
No, but I think they just do a really good job of like interloping new people, and then so then when people leave, they have
Yeah.
other people take center stage. But
I mean, is
yeah,
Meredith still in it?
I think she is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Of
titular
course.
character she would have to be, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's I think, medical dramas, maybe we can talk a little bit about like why we think this is such a compelling genre for people, because it is one of the most popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really think a lot of it is just that like like at some point in our lives everybody has to go to the hospital. And
Mhm.
so like the just like the inner workings of that, and I think it's just automatically fascinating in a way. That being said, I think that like shows like Grey's Anatomy have definitely like romanticized the idea of getting into the medical industry, but it because Grey's Anatomy is very much like a soap opera, and
Yeah.
while the Pit does focused on like interpersonal relationships with staff members, that really kind of takes a backseat to just like each person's individual journey. So instead of focusing on like, like the torrid love affairs, it's more like, wow, this doctor's overworked and having a mental breakdown
Yeah,
in peds, which like that probably happens more often than we would care to admit, because we've heard since COVID that like a lot of people that work in the ER specifically are overworked. So, and
definitely.
they're understaffed. And so like I think the choice to set the pit specifically in like an inner city emergency room, and also one that is clearly like underfunded and also understaffed, like the waiting room too. Like the waiting room scenes are some of the most interesting as
Yeah,
well of the series.
definitely.
So yeah, it hits a lot of points that we just don't normally see, or we haven't traditionally seen on other medical dramas. So that's been
Yeah.
pretty fun.
Well, and I like too what you brought up about, the personal lives of these medical professionals, because there's certainly quite a bit that gets implied about what's going on in people's personal lives, but it's not the focus of the series, which I think is something that makes The Pit really different from other medical dramas I've seen. Like, even thinking about ER, thinking about House, thinking about Grey's Anatomy, there's a ton of time in those shows that is dedicated to following the characters outside of the hospital environment. And that doesn't really happen so much in The Pit.
No,
Yeah.
no, we get in there and we stay in there. I think like the most we do, like you're right, we do hear about some home life. Like we know, like you brought up the abuse of like access to drugs. We know like Dr. Langdon, like we hear a little bit about like what causes him, what drives him to do that.
Hmm.
Um I think we're going to talk later about Dr. Mel, because I know we both love her.
I love
But
her.
like,
She's my
like
favorite.
yeah, she's my favorite too. She's a little cinnamon roll. But just like, yeah, over the like just learning about like her sister and how she's her sister's main caretaker. So it's like that stuff does come in, but it kind of is like you're right. We don't on a show like Grey's Anatomy, we might spend like an entire episode at Mel's apartment, just like with her and her sister, or like half an episode, and
Exactly.
that like does not happen here because there's no time, and the
Right.
time really is focused on the shift inside that world.
Hmm. Yeah, well, it's just really interesting to see how, and again, it's like it's a huge like tip of the hat to the actors who are pulling this off, because it's very clear that these characters have, at least for some of them, they have these like interpersonal lives outside of this place that we never get to see, but you can tell based on how they play off of each other that those lives are like very real. Like somebody, I don't know if it's like the writer's room or if the actors were involved in this or if it was like show creators or what, but like somebody took the time to flesh out who these characters are outside of this emergency room. Like, even getting into the fact that Santos and Whitaker are roommates. That's something that happened at the end of season one, and it gets brought up
Mm-hmm.
very briefly in season two. But you can just tell based off the way those characters play off of each other that they are
Yeah,
roommates.
that's been actually really fun.
Yeah.
This season too is just seeing how that relationship, just seeing how the relationships have shifted, and how,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start to think about the fact that it's like, this is like we've really only spent a day with these characters technically. And so then, but it makes sense, because if you're like, you're basically like trauma bonding. So um, you would feel closer. Like you think about like how many characters, like their first day is that first season, that first shift that we get,
Yeah.
including Whitaker, and
Right.
also Dr. Mel. But it is, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that you're right. Like just seeing like the small shift in, like first of all knowing that there's been a 10-month time jump, and then knowing that Whitaker and Santos have been like roommates for 10 months now, like the subtleties in which they play off each other in season 2 versus how they started in season 1 is
Yeah.
palpable. I also really love I love like kind of like rare pairings that you're not expecting. I really like the way that Dr. Langdon and Dr. Mel play off each other too.
Yeah.
Especially because he's so like tough to like, and you see him butting heads with a lot of people, but for some reason, and she's like the complete opposite of him, but for
Yeah.
some reason, like he like you know, she's supposed to be learning from him, but then it's very clear that he's learning a lot from her. I loved that in season 1, like there were a couple times where like, you know, like his like brash bedside manner was just like not working, and then she would come in, and just because of like her history with like being her sister's caretaker, for example, was able to like connect with a patient that he might have not been able to connect
Yeah.
to in the same way and stuff
Definitely.
like that. Yeah.
Well, and it's such a contrast with you know, his dynamic with Santos too,
Yeah,
because
because she
she
wants
is,
that like peerage. She
yeah.
wants him to teach her, and for some reason, like they just don't mix well together.
Yeah. Well, they're both like they both want to be top dog. I
That
think
I
is
think
what it
that's what
is.
it is. Yeah, I think you're
And
right.
that's just not really Mel's bag.
No, no.
Like she's not
Yeah.
competing. I think that's the
Mm-mm.
difference. Like he can have um he can have like a more positive working relationship with her and be more of a mentor with her because she's not competing with him.
Yeah,
Whereas like
yeah.
Santos is competing with everybody.
Right, yeah, probably
Yeah.
even with herself.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Who are some other characters that really stood out for you? I love Dana too. She's the
The
head
charge
nurse. She's
nurse.
so good. Yeah, the charge
I
nurse. She's
love
so
her.
great. Yeah.
I love how she's just like no BS. And
Mhm.
you hear this a lot when people just talk about medical settings, and it's even something you'll hear in like a lot of other medical dramas. But this idea that, like, yes, like your doctors are your doctors, but there is just so much experience and grit that nurses bring to the table. And I really appreciate that they get their flowers in the show. I think even Dr. Robbie at one point is like, listen to your nurse who you're working with because your
Yeah.
nurses will spot the things that you've missed. And they're like, I guess they're just a little more in the weeds in the day to day than the doctors are. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. But
No, I think that that makes sense because you
yeah,
even think about like the people that are monitoring your vitals and that are taking your vitals in the first place are the nurses.
right.
So yeah, that would make sense to me. But yeah, I just love the way that Catherine Lanassa plays Dana. She just plays her like somebody that's seen
It all.
probably everything under the sun, you
Yep.
know? Like she has this like she like almost like a laissez-faire kind of attitude, but also like you can tell that she's like the work weighs heavy on her day to day. The whole like altercation too with the patient in season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how she's like, I think I'm getting too old for this. Like this is, you know, maybe I'm done. It's
Yeah.
just
She can't
yeah, it was
stay away
so
though.
great. No, no. And I can like that also makes sense like for I think for a lot of times for people that work in these really fast paced kind of like very demanding jobs, it's almost like they don't know how to do anything else. So it's hard for them to step away.
Yeah. Well, I would think too, especially if you've been doing that for your entire career and you know nothing else. I can see why it
Yeah.
would be hard to walk away from that adrenaline, even if
Mhm.
it's not the best thing for you all the time.
Right, right.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk some more about favorite characters and compelling moments in the series, but first we need to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, but we'll be right back after that. And if you're with us here on YouTube, no ad for you. That's just something we have to do for the audio version of this show that will be out a little bit later. And we are back. So, Do we still have any characters that we want to focus in on? Because there's so
That's
many great
There are so
characters.
many. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know we talked a little bit about Santos and Whitaker. I think like um Whitaker kind of like being the butt of the joke, and then like I think something that this show does really well is that like you think that like you know what a character is, and then they like slowly start to peel back the layers and you realize that there's like more going on underneath. Whitaker being like completely broke too, and having to like sneak into the hospital to like live there, which is what ultimately gets Santos to offer her spare room to him. I just think that that probably happens more often than not. Like I remember my first like paid job out of college. I had to wait like a whole month to get my first paycheck, and it's like that's so hard, you know?
Yeah.
And so like that really resonated with me, just this whole like feeling like you're like, you know, like you're in a good spot, but you still have to wait for payroll to come
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. Well, and he doesn't, as you're pointing out, he doesn't get that until he's like officially out of residency.
Yeah.
So the reason he's living in the hospital in season one is because he's not getting paid to be there,
Right.
which is rough. And I think a realistic reminder to viewers too of like the literal time and financial investment that goes into these careers.
Mhm.
So be nice when you go to the doctor.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
also love Javati. She's like
I
the whiz
love her.
kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? She kind of grew on me at
Yeah,
first.
me
And
too.
I think this was what was intended because at first she kind of
Mhm.
comes across as like a very stiff personality, know-it-all, and without like a lot of life experience, but she's grown on me a lot. And I mean, even like in within season 1, she grew on me a lot, and I really like how comfortable she's gotten in this environment and how she's really kind of bucking tradition within her family by pursuing a focus in emergency medicine, which her mother very clearly does not want her to do. So you just get all of these like little tidbits about who these people are and what's going on in their lives outside of this place. Something else I thought was really interesting, and this is something that gets introduced in season 2 with the introduction of Dr. Alashimi as the new attending in the pit because Dr. Robbie is going on a midlife crisis motorcycle adventure for a few months. So Dr. Alashimi steps in to be the attending in the pit, and she does things pretty differently than Dr. Robbie does, including super relevant to today's world, wanting to bring AI into the emergency room specifically for like patient notes and charting. So it's been really interesting to see how that storyline is playing out so far this season. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I thought that that was really current. I think a lot of times, like you do see these medical shows, they pull from real life headlines and stuff like that. But usually it's like, you know, going back to Grey's Anatomy, which is probably a good touchstone for most people. It's like the most salacious headlines because they're trying that again, that's more of like a
Mm-hmm.
medical soap drama. But for something like The Pit that's really trying to seat itself in reality, you know, like adding something like that, or even like the medical passports too that she's trying to
Yeah.
instate is like that is like neither of us work in the medical field. I've never been to luckily never had to go to an emergency room that is that inundated with people and that understaffed, but I know that those exist. So it definitely makes sense that in an effort to try and speed things up, somebody is coming in that the hospital thinks can streamline the process. And so
Mm-hmm.
streamlining can look like a lot of things, including the use of AI. But I did love that, like, I can't remember who it was that was saying, like, isn't that inaccurate? And she's like, well, you still have to read it over. And it's like, well, then
Yes.
what's the point of AI? Why don't they just do it the old fashioned? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Well, and
but
I think this is like this is, I think, the argument that we see playing out about AI in pretty much any sector. Personally, like I think AI can be a really useful tool, but it should be treated as a tool and not as like something that'll do everything for you, because it can't. It'll be confidently wrong sometimes, which is exactly why you have to read things over that it gives you to make sure that it's accurate. So yeah, like at one point, one of the medical charts that it put together based on the recording of a patient visit that Dr. Alashimi had got a medication wrong. And she was like, "Hey, like I'm not saying that you don't have to proofread this stuff. You still do, but think about how much time it saves you with your charting." And that's kind of a plot that we see unfolding with Santos this season is like she's in her second year of residency and she's having a really hard time keeping up with her charting. um, and so Dr. Alashimi is definitely trying to influence her there. But I appreciate like the ethical concerns that come with using this kind of like automation in an emergency room setting, because there's even one point where Dr. Elashimi is lecturing Dr. Robbie about how AI will save them so much time. Meanwhile, an ambulance pulls up with a screaming man who has literally had like his shoulder dislocated. And Dr. Robbie's like, how is that going to help me right this instant with what's in front of us? And we also see somebody calling out that I think it was the old guy who was flirting with Dr. McKay, if I recall directly, or if I recall
Hmm.
correctly. But he's like, hey, my patient passport says that this was only supposed to take this amount of
Two
time, and
hours or something like that.
like
Yeah.
they haven't even taken me up for the x-ray yet. So it's like, is it really helping if you're setting expectations that then you can't meet
Yeah,
you
no, and
know
that's a great point, especially because, like, again, so much of this show also kind of we go back into the waiting room, and the waiting room
Mm-hmm.
is its own little microcosm,
Right.
and there's so many people waiting there to get medical attention, but then they come to the back, and it's like sometimes they like it's like I think something that else that you're starting that's very realistic that you are starting to see in hospitals across the country is that sometimes there are not enough beds. So you have to have people out in the hallways in the ER, and then sometimes people need to be transferred upstairs, but there's not enough beds upstairs, so they still have to stay out in the ER, and they're out of their pods. And yeah, so setting false expectations, it's like the medical passport. I think probably what they're setting up there is that like what worked for her at her last hospital, which clearly had more hands on deck, is probably not going to work here.
Yeah, well, she was at a VA
Yeah.
hospital before this, and I think Dr. Robbie's the one who calls it out, where he's like, okay, was that a trauma center though? Because this is a trauma center and it's a completely different beast. And she points out, well, like, no, it's not a trauma center, but like, we would have, veterans show up with like trauma based injuries that we would treat. But I think they're really starting to show over the course of this season that it's a different environment. And even Dr. Alashimi, I think she's having to adjust. Even in just the few episodes we've gotten so far, I feel like I'm starting to notice her mellowing out a little bit. She comes across like very directive in the first couple of episodes, and you can tell that she and Dr. Robbie have different ways of doing things, and it feels like they're also building up some tension between those two characters. I'm not sure if that'll amount to anything, but you kind of see her, I feel like you start to see her relax a little bit.
Yeah, it's also interesting too that he like obviously a sabbatical doesn't mean you're gone forever, but it is interesting
Right.
that he pushes back so much on what she is trying to change, and what she's trying to implement while he's gone. Because at the end of the day, assuming that he does go instead of just pull out of his sabbatical, then he's not going to be around to like run the ship, so to speak, the way he
Right.
wants to. It's all going to fall on her. So it's like, what's the point, you know? But yeah, so I tend to agree with you. I think they are trying to build up tension there for sure. And the
Yeah.
fact too that he keeps like it's so funny to watch him try and like avoid her because the space is
Yeah.
so small and he keeps trying to hide from her and then she's like chasing after him.
Yeah.
So that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
It's made for an
Well,
interesting dynamic.
yeah, well, and I mean that like you can't blame her because she's stepping in to cover for this guy while he goes on a sabbatical. Like she wants to make sure she does a good job. And
Yeah.
she makes a big point early on of being like, I've never been sued. So,
Yeah. Oh my
you know,
gosh. Speaking of that, poor Mel.
I know her first
Yeah.
malpractice
Yeah.
suit
And
that she was
everyone's
named
like, that
in.
happens all the time. She's like, I'm being
Yeah,
sued.
I know. She is the sweetest. I did
Yeah.
not realize that that was Bryan Cranston's daughter.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I did not know that. And it was one of those things like once I realized it, I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
But the first few episodes I watched, I had no idea. And I was like, who is she? Because she is fabulous.
Yeah. We love a talented Nepo baby.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
definitely.
no, she is killing it. And I just think that the way that she really like she plays the role so well. I don't
Hmm.
really I haven't seen her in anything else, but
Me
you know,
neither.
just like that Mel is such a specific character that I would think that like it would take you know, take some skill to feel like almost like she's like almost like vibrating out of her skin, but she's trying to stay contained and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's like, I mean, the impression I get is that she stims
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit, and I just appreciate the amount of like respect and sensitivity that the show takes towards Mel's portrayal, but towards the portrayal of other kinds of modern issues that I'm sure come up in emergency rooms, like thinking about the college student who was very clearly brutalized by a racist, campo officer,
Mm-hmm.
or shoot, what's there was portrayal of I forget what her name was, but she's a deaf patient who was like kind of
Yes.
stuck in the waiting room and didn't really know like what to expect, and it was because upon checking her in, like they hadn't immediately connected the dots that she needed an ASL interpreter, and so there was a lot of emphasis placed on like apologizing for that and then making sure she had the resources she needed. So like I really like how this particular hospital environment seems to try to do a good job of connecting people to like social safety resources that can make them feel advocated for and seen.
Yeah, yeah, and it is interesting too to kind of like learn more because I assume that because they're you know it is being touted as the most accurate medical drama on television for a number of reasons. I'm sure they've also done their research as far as like certain protocols and procedures go. So it's really fascinating to see like this is like this season they once again have a case where they feel like they have to like report something involving a child and so
Yeah.
just seeing like that it's not as easy as just being like hey this is what we noticed call the police like they have to follow certain protocols certain rules that is fascinating too and also like it adds like a human element because you see these like doctors and nurses struggle with the fact that they have to wait they can't just act right away based on a hunch.
Yeah. Well, and they don't have all the information they need either.
Right, exactly.
And that I'm so glad you brought up that example, because I wanted to ask you if there have been any like diagnoses covered in the show, because they do a good job of like covering various medical issues and explaining what they are and how they work and like what the treatment course is for them. So for that little girl, she ended up having ITP, which is thrombocytopenia. And when Dana came running out and was like, wait, 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 her platelets are only at 9,000. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I know. I know what she has because my dog has that disease.
That's so
And so
funny.
I was actually watching that with my parents, and that happened. I was like, "Oh my God, that's what Canella has." So I felt like low key like, "Oh my God, I understand what they're talking about."
For me,
So has there yeah.
it's always like silly stuff, like when somebody can't, like their lung collapses, someone can't breathe. I'm like, oh, they gotta poke that hole in
Yep.
the third rib, between the third rib. It's like that's what Grey's Anatomy taught me.
Yeah. Well,
So
do you have don't you have some connections to the medical world?
yeah, my stepmom is a nurse. She actually, she's kind of crazy. She works two full-time jobs as a nurse because
Oh my
she likes to
gosh.
have, yeah, she likes to have one fun fund and then one fund for like the household. So she's always she's wanted to do that since she was out of medical school, and yeah, for her, so for her it works.
Oh my
But
gosh, she must work all the time.
yeah,
Has she watched this show?
I don't know if she has. Usually I do ask her about like medical shows and if she can watch them or if she can't, because it's like, because I get it. Like sometimes if I'm watching like something that is too close to like my line of work, it's also like it's really easy to kind of like rage watch it, being
Yeah.
like, oh, that's not realistic or that's not accurate. Um, but so I yeah, so sometimes I will ask her if she watches stuff, or if it just feels like it's too close to, it hits too close to home, or if it just like is too inaccurate that she can't like get out of her head enough to enjoy it. But I'll have to ask her about the Pit.
Yeah.
That hasn't come up, but yeah, it would be interesting to get her take on it. I do every once in a while. Do you ever watch Dr. Mike on YouTube?
Mm-mm.
Okay, he's like an actual doctor, and so he reacts to like medical shows sometimes, and he'll be like, oh, that's accurate, that's inaccurate, and stuff like that. So it's like it's I don't watch him regularly, but I did tune into a couple episodes on his watching of the Pit just to see, and he was pretty pleased with it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I've been hearing is that a lot of people who work in these settings are like, yeah, down to like the dynamics, what the environment is like, but also the portrayal of these injuries and the surgeries that have to happen. I mean, like you called out earlier in this discussion, they don't shy away from the blood and the gore and honestly some shocking
I have
moments.
never, I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
that this is what you're talking about was shocking. I've never seen them like actually show a birth on screen.
Right?
And I was like, wow, we're really getting like like I like they showed like a baby's head crowning.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, whoa, like I can't believe they were able to show that. And then I remembered it was HBO and I was like, of course they can show that. But then I was like, how did they do it? You know? So it's
Yeah.
like that's part of it too. It's like not just the shock factor of like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this on TV before in this genre, but also like how do they pull this off?
Yeah. Have you watched any of the like behind the scenes making
Yeah,
of
yeah.
stuff? It's really
It's
impressive how they pull it
fascinating.
together.
Yeah. The prosthetic, like for that one too, I remember reading, I think it was Entertainment Weekly that broke down how they did it. And it was basically like they had to create a special prosthetic that went over the actress that was playing the mother in labor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like, yeah, just the level of detail that goes into making this show is just incredible.
Yeah. Definitely. And I mean, you will see things. There's, a fully erect penis at one point that just like
Hmm.
gets literally gets it becomes a focal point for like
Yeah.
multiple scenes. I know that
Yeah.
our friend Andrew, who we also podcast with, I think he was shook by
Yeah.
that. I was expecting it just based
Hmm.
on what that guy came in with,
Me
because
too.
he was basically just like trying to give himself a double dose of like ED drugs,
Yeah,
and yeah,
exactly.
so he
And I
was
think that
he
that also happened on Grey's Anatomy too. So I was like, oh, they're gonna have to like bleed the. Yeah.
yeah. No, and they did not shy away from showing that
Nope.
either. So like this
Yeah.
show really, yeah, I think
It
it
must
really
be. It
does.
must be crazy to be an actor on this show that then has to like you have to simulate like draining blood from a penis
Right.
or like giving birth. It's just another day on set.
Yeah.
So, I did want to ask you though, because I think we're kind of like nearing the end of our primer episode here on the pit, but like I do feel like there's been a tonal shift between season one and season two.
Yeah.
So, like, how are you finding it so far? Do you find it just as enjoyable as season one? Are you like
Yeah.
struggling to keep up with it? Okay.
No, I'm finding it as enjoyable, and what I really like about it is that they're not shying away from rotating characters, which makes sense, right? Like we had Dr. Collins in season 1 who we have not seen in season 2 because she switched hospitals,
Yeah,
right?
the
So like
actress left the
yeah,
show, so
and then they introduced Dr. Alashimi, but they also introduced a whole new cohort of student doctors for whom like this season is their first day. So like whereas like last season it was, Dr. Whitaker and Dr. Javadi who were like a real newbies. We've got Joy Ogilvy and there's one more. I
I can't
forget.
remember the other one, but you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, they're doing a really good job of like rotating in and out casts of characters in a way that I think is probably pretty realistic
Yeah, I
for
mean, even
working in
down
that
to
environment.
the way that season one ends with the night shift coming in because
Mm-hmm.
they're the day shift. It's like, I mean, you could see a. It's so easy to see a future where maybe they do a whole season with the night shift instead of the day shift, and that would be an entirely different cast.
Yeah, I mean, I could almost see that becoming like a spin-off,
Mm-hmm.
like the Pit After Dark,
Yeah.
if you will. Like they
No, for
could.
sure.
And I
Yeah.
mean, the show's been really successful. So if they wanted to, they could. Because I would have to imagine that the vibe of working the graveyard shift in this environment is going to be pretty different from working during the daytime.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah. What other sort of like present day themes do we think they're going to bring into this season? Like, for example, I feel like it's impossible for there not to be an episode that centers around ice.
Yeah. I would say that that's a good point. Also like some kind of containment episode, not necessarily COVID because I think we're too far removed from that, but some kind of like maybe like uh like measles is a big one that's coming back.
Yep.
Something like that where they have to quarantine a certain
Yeah,
part of the hospital. I could see that coming into play just because of where we're at with some of this stuff coming
totally.
back.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
such a good point. Yeah. No, we're bringing measles back, y'all.
Yeah. In
Great.
2026.
Yeah, what a time to be
Yeah.
alive. But yeah, I think what I like about this show is it doesn't shy away
Mhm.
from those difficult themes, and I think it'll just be
Yeah.
the timing is ripe to
They
cover
also did
things like that.
yeah, they also I think last season didn't they do an episode where like there was like an anti-vaxxing mother
That's
infusing care.
right.
Yeah, that was really timely as well.
Yeah, well, because
So,
I think the kid they brought in did have measles
oh maybe they did. Yeah, maybe
because
they did.
she had
Yeah.
refused to vaccinate her children for it,
Right.
and yeah, and he was like dying,
Mhm.
and oh, you know what it was? He needed like a spinal tap so they could
That's right.
confirm,
Yeah.
and she was like, "No, you're not
Mhm.
doing that."
And
And
then the dad
so
was like, "Do it anyway." Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But no, I think that we'll probably see some more of that. It'll be interesting to see how these things collide too.
Mhm.
because there's no way they don't.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. But yeah, like other than that, I'm really just waiting to see what the big uh event is going to be, because with this being set on a major holiday, there's no way that shit's not going to go down at some point in the midnight hour. Like someone's getting like their foot blown off because of a firework or something like that, at least.
Yeah, yeah, or like somebody's gonna smuggle fireworks into the ER and do some
Right.
crazy shit. Well, and we also have to find out like what's going on at the other hospital that's
That's right.
diverting patients, or like they opened up the pool to take bets about like what's going on at the other hospital.
Right. Right.
So, and it's starting to it's starting to seem like it might be something serious, but they still don't know. But the question keeps coming up of like, does anyone know what's going on over there? And nobody knows yet. So,
Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
safe
it'll
to say
be
that we'll both
yeah.
be continuing to watch every week.
Oh
So
yes.
yeah.
Very much religiously. I am
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with this show. I love it.
Yeah, it's a fun one for sure. And we hope that you all have enjoyed our little, just like casual chat about the pit. It's so much fun to do these episodes where we kind of just get to talk about why we've been loving the show, you know?
Yeah.
And we hope that you've been enjoying it too. So yeah, I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
do another episode on it at some point because we're both big fans, as we've said. So.
Definitely. And as we wrap up, where can people find us if they want to follow the show and share feedback?
That is a good question. Let me pull up the doc.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. I forgot to put it in here. Okay. If you want to find us around the internet, you can follow us on social media. We're at What the Hype Podcast on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. And on X, we are at What the Hype Show. Our website is whatthehypepodcast.com. And if you want to email us about anything, you can do that at whatthehypepodcast@gmail.com. Finally, if you have a friend or a family member that needs a little refresher on the pit, or maybe needs some incentive to get started on binging this show, send them this episode and also let them know that we're talking through a different aspect of pop culture every other week here on What the Hype.
Thanks so much for joining us, y'all. And we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye, y'all.